I'll make you want to throw hands. Borderlands wasn't bad. Welcome back to the Shield Network. I am your host. Well, I'm not wearing the Bad News Harris shirt today. Not the point. Point is, I am your host, Bad News Harris, and today I am not specifically talking about Borderlands. I'm using it as an example for today's topic. Because we went to see Borderlands, and mind you, over the last few days, I've seen reviews and comments about it being bad, but I haven't looked into the gameplay slash storyline of Borderlands because I've never played Borderlands. So that right there is basically what this today's subject is. First things first, I'm going to say this as a non-player of Borderlands. The movie itself wasn't bad. I mean, a bunch of gratuitous action for the most part, but it was fun. That's all I was really up. That's all Desi and I were hoping for. Now, to get on track with today's subject, the proper way of enjoying video game movie adaptations. Because, in my personal opinion, there are three ways of attending a video game adaptation, whether it's a movie or it's a TV show, whichever, when it goes from digital media to on-screen media. There is the first and most obvious way of enjoying them, and that's being a fan of said content and knowing about it before going to see it. That way, you have the full immersion experience that you had beforehand, and now you get to have a different variation to compare it to. Then you get to compare notes on source material, on comparisons of actors, of their portrayals, things of that sort. You get what I mean? Granted, I will always put that at the top to be the most proper or appropriate way. Well, I guess not appropriate. The blah. I'll use that as the number one way to experience a video game adaptation. Second, no, actually, I'm going to skip to the third. And third is going to be going to the experience with zero experience with the source material, meaning you haven't played the game, you haven't seen people play the game, you know nothing about the game, but you've seen that the movie has been released, so you go see it that way. At that point, you are simply going as a normal moviegoer, but you should not have any expectations when you know it's a video game adaptation. You go in not knowing the background, you know nothing of the story, concept, anything like that, so you have nothing genuinely to complain about outside of its entertainment value. Not exactly a bad way to do it. That's one way I prefer to do it. Second, the middle ground is going in as a fan of the material, but going in ignoring everything you know. And to be honest, that's a borderline, side pun intended, best way to experience. Because when you go in and you've played the video game, or you know everything about it, or you have the experience with it, and then you go to the movie and you have all the knowledge that's immediately going to bounce back at your head that's saying, hey, that's not how that's supposed to be. Why did they change this? What's up with this character's portrayal? Things like that. Which isn't exactly a bad thing for those of us who are fans of said content, but it can also ruin the experience because, again, we go in with the expectation of it matching what we've already seen and experienced. Whereas if you go in as a complete stranger, you've never played the game, you've never watched any content about it, nothing, you're literally going in blind. you have nothing to compare it to, so the things that don't make sense are just the things that logically don't make sense when you're watching it on the outside. And your opinion becomes purely uh, film based. You have a completely separate outlook on said movie because you're not a part of the fandom that came with or that it was made for. Now, I will admit that the most difficult way to enjoy these movies is step number two, and that's the middle ground between knowing it and not knowing it. Because I know it is damn near impossible to attend a movie of or attend an adaptation of something. And what I'm going to use here is the most hated adaptation of all time, which is Dragon Ball Evolution. You see, Dragon Ball Evolution was an attempt to get people outside of the Dragon Ball fandom into it, which was a horrible thing to do. That is not how you do an adaptation. Hell no. What you do with an adaptation is you make it to bring in new, but that's not the primary goal. The goal is to make it good, and then that is supposed to be what brings in the new fan base. Not exactly an easy thing to do. We're not going to delve too far into it because the whole point is when it comes to their adaptations, we go in with nothing but expectations. We already know what we want to see, and we know what we don't want to see. And most of the time, when it comes to an adaptation, it's not a. I'm not going to say it's not a fan of the content or the franchise who's making it, but it sure as hell fucking seems that way. Because we've got, let's see, a lot of Marvel content, let's put it that way. It seems, don't get me wrong, Kevin Feige is a fan of all things Marvel. He does a fantastic job with what he's got his hands on. But things that Feige doesn't touch are the obvious things that have no heart and soul put into them. Put Black Widow as an example. Or Ant-Man and the Wasp. No, not Ant-Man and the Wasp. People like that movie. Ant-Man and Quantumania. Or Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. It's really just people ruin the experiences for themselves because they go in with the expectations and they don't have the thought or even the nerve to detach what they know so they can enjoy something fresh and new as if it's brand spanking new. When you go into a movie not having that thought process, it is immediately going to bias you against the content you're seeing, and then that's going to form a different opinion than you would have than if you went in and just considered it its own medium. That's like saying, it's like here in America, we've got comic book shows and movies like Batman specifically, but then in another region, we've got things like Batman Ninja, which is the anime of Batman, or Rick and Morty the anime. You get the point. Uh, because when you go into Rick and Morty the anime, hell, I'll use Rick and Morty the anime as an example here. I tried watching a little bit last night, and it was nowhere near the Rick and Morty that I knew, which isn't a bad thing, but it kind of showed me that not everything works as an anime adaptation. I'm not sure about Batman Ninja because I've never watched it, but Rick and Morty just did not have the same feel. But hey, so really only adding to my point here. I went into Rick and Morty the anime expecting original Rick and Morty, but I didn't take in the thought process of one, I'm biasing myself and I'm not giving a fair chance to something new that I'm watching. Or it's like watching a reboot of something you enjoyed long ago. And I mean reboot, not revival. There's a big fucking difference, King of the Hill fandom. Let's get away from that real quick. Yeah. But my point is, when it comes to video game adaptations, anime adaptations, book adaptations, things of the sort, when it comes to them being a movie, television show, internet series, when they are being adapted from their original medium, my point of this video was to say there are three ways to do it. There's the easy way, there's the most difficult way, and then there's the easier than the easy way. Easy way being You're already a fan of it, so you're going to enjoy it, but you're already biased against it. There's the hard way, which is step two, being a fandom of it, but ignoring everything you know so you can enjoy it for what it is, and then compare later. Or three, which is easier than the easy, and that's just not having any experience whatsoever before going to see it. All three of them have their benefits. As you can see across YouTube, that the first step is one of the best ways to do it entertainment wise when you're viewing for the entertainment of others, i.e. like CinemaSins, um Nostalgia Critic, any type of movie or uh um um um, um when you're doing it for constructive criticism and content, like content makers like those do. I'm not saying they only watch it to do that. I'm saying they use what they do to add to it. Because I know that when it comes to CinemaSins and Nostalgia Critic, they enjoy, for the most part, what they watch before doing their content on it. I mean, Doug's talked about that multiple times, and I'm pretty sure Jeremy's talked about it in the middle of videos too. So, but neither here nor there. I'm just saying. And when it comes to Borderlands, I think that's actually the second most perfect example as to how to know how to go do that or how to go see them. Dragon Ball was my first experience with this paradox, and I originally called it the Dragon Ball Paradox or the DBE Paradox because it was Dragon Ball Evolution. And nowadays, since Dragon Ball isn't going to be the best reference for it, I'm going to be renaming it the Borderlands Paradox because Borderlands is a perfect example of this actually. Because if you're going in as someone who doesn't have experience with the games and stuff like that, which is mostly like me and Desi, we don't play the games. But we have seen others play them. But as people who don't have actual experience with Borderlands, we came in with no knowledge and it was a fun time. Gratuitous action, violence, and it didn't have too much drama. Like the dramatic parts of the movie were actually well paced, they didn't last very long, and then they ended with either the perfect uptick to the scene or the perfect addition to the storyline. And those who can understand what I'm saying will understand what I mean. But I can also see how people and see I have a friend who enjoys Borderlands a lot. And I can see them possibly not enjoying the movie because it's not going to be what they expect. Because when we see adaptations, we always have expectations. But it's neither here nor there. Basically it's going to come down to you're going to allow your original fandom of the content to bias your decision or your opinion, or you're going to be one of those who go in knowing nothing, which isn't a bad thing, and then you form a more fair opinion from that side of the line because both opinions are perfectly valid. And then you've got those of us who do it the median. You stand on the line, knowing what you're there for, knowing what you could expect, but also erasing it all so you can enjoy everything you possibly can for what it is and then do the comparisons later. That's what I always try to do. I mean, that's what I did. Well, I didn't do that going into Dragon Ball. That's how I came up with this entire concept. Because when it came to Dragon Ball, I was just like, fuck yeah, live action Dragon Ball, let's do this. And then we all saw how that turned out. But afterwards, it came down to me realizing that the reason I didn't enjoy it was because I expected the anime as opposed to an American production. So that's what we got. I mean, the directors thought they knew what we would like, and they did not. A primary example of non-fans making adaptations for things that fans should be able to enjoy. But whatever. Those are just my thoughts. I just wanted to come on and say that yes, we went and saw Borderlands. We saw why people wouldn't enjoy it, but for people who weren't fans of the games because we don't play the games, we actually had fun. So take it or leave it as you will. I just want to say that when it comes to movies and adaptations, it's perfectly fair to expect what you've already seen and know about said content, and then being upset about it not following the source material. But there's nothing wrong with allowing it to be its own branch of material. Unless you got a situation like the original Sonic the Hedgehog CGI design, then yes, we bully the shit out of the studios to make sure that they are at least visually accurate. But that's about it. Either go in as a fan and be biased, go in as a newcomer with zero opinion so you can have the most fun you can possibly have, or be a fan to go see it. But don't let your fandom uh take over your thoughts and emotions during the experience, because that's just going to ruin and bias your opinion. But that's just my personal opinion. And that's my rant for today. Thank you for stopping by. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bad News Harris, out.